So tomorrow's the day, Season 1's launch for Modern Warfare 2 and the long-awaited launch of Warzone 2 and DMZ. After hearing about it and talking about it for so long, we're finally able to drop into Mazrah and get a new battleground to fight it out on, to be the last man or team standing, or perhaps just explore and extract if DMZ is more your thing this time around. Today we're breaking down a handful of tips to help you get ready for Warzone 2 and the new experiences that we'll have, as well as to best prepare for what's upcoming in this new iteration of Warzone. As we go along, drop your thoughts below. Are you looking forward to Warzone 2? Are you going to jump into Battle Royale or DMZ first? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you find it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with everything on deck over the coming weeks. We've got a lot to dive into with Warzone 2 and Season 1 here across both Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone. So if you're part of that 70% of viewers who are not subscribed and you'd like to join us on that road to 600,000 subscribers, I'd love to have you in the community. For now though, let's take a look at these best tips to prepare you for the launch of Warzone 2. Let's start simple. Let's start before we even jump into the game itself. Some preparation tips, even that you can start now before launch. Firstly, make sure you have preloaded Warzone 2. Now, as we talked about yesterday, it seems like the sizing of this will depend on whether or not you have Modern Warfare 2 already installed, or if you're jumping in for the very first time into Warzone itself. We gave a little bit of a breakdown here, and just to kind of paraphrase so we don't rehash the exact same thing from yesterday, what it seems like is that both games end up booting the Call of Duty HQ application, where they're the same application but not in a sense. Which, if that's the case, that makes sense as to why Modern Warfare 2's Warzone 2 installation is only about 3 gigabytes in sizing. But if you don't have the Modern Warfare 2 game already installed, it'll be around 100 gigabytes. There's a lot of shared data here with this that you don't have to have Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer packs if you're just a Warzone player, but you also don't need the Warzone 2 content pack if you don't want to play Warzone. Unlike how they are both tethered together and you could not get rid of Warzone in Modern Warfare 2019. So that you have the ability to preload on whatever platform you're on, BNet, Steam, Xbox, PlayStation. It should be in your platform store. So if you're looking to jump into the game as soon as it launches, make sure you have that preloaded so that you can do that. Another thing you can do to get ready is more so mental, but it's noting your settings you'll be using. While we can't launch into the Warzone 2 experience just yet, you can take a mental note of some of the things that you'll want to change in terms of settings when you first boot up the game. This is even assuming that it's not, again, something that shares your Modern Warfare 2 settings, which honestly would make it way easier if that's the case, but if it does not and you have to reset it up, things like your button layout and sensitivity you'll want to make sure you're taking advantage of. Your movement settings like sprinting options, your quality settings, console will have a few, but PC there's going to be a lot more to go in depth with. Motion blur and film grain settings, I'd turn both of those off. Your aim assist settings, whether you want your default or Black Ops setting, your aim response curve type being dynamic is what I'd recommend. And then of course, for Warzone this time around, it seems like we'll also have that FOV on console, the first time for the Warzone experience. So you want to make sure that you jot down and adjust all of that here so that you can jump in and feel right at home with the experience. Now let's talk more tailored stuff here with this, more in-game details, some general and in-game tips for Warzone 2. The first and probably biggest one that I would recommend here right out of the gate is to play with various weapons. Right now is the best possible time to experiment. As of tomorrow, it's a clean slate. There is quite literally no defined meta just yet. While we may see preferred weapons pop up here relatively quickly, there's quite literally no right or wrong answer just yet. Play with what you want while you can before lobbies get filled up with what will be eventually some sort of meta within Warzone. And talking about that, trying to find the best weapons here that do the best for you. If you're one of those people that love to hunt out for the meta, you want to be ahead of the curve and find that next best gun. Well, we all want the same thing. We all want to do as best as we possibly can. So if you get smoked by somebody using a different gun than you, try that gun out next game and see how it goes. If you smoke someone, maybe you're onto something. But if you get smoked again, maybe it was just a fluke, and then, of course, try that other gun that you just got smoked by again. Rinse and repeat until you find the weapons that are doing the best, and eventually you'll build out a loadout of preferred weapons that do well for you. We defined a few weapons that I want to try out first a few days ago. I'm thinking the TAC-56, Kastov 7.62, 74U, and M4, maybe those rifles you want to try out, with the Lockman sub and the Vaznev for the SMGs, the Icarus for the LMG spot, that SPR, Signal, and LAB for your long range and sniper play, but that's just some predictions. We'll see how that all goes. But anyways, beyond that, next you want to find a drop zone that is right for you. With so many new points of interest, new towns and landmarks, what's the best drop for you? Well, as with the meta, right now there is no right or wrong answer. You can land central and hot at, say, Observatory or Al Mazrah City, or you can land on the outskirts like Sawa Village, Fortress, and Quarry, along with some unnamed locations. It really all is recognizing what you want, high intensity or to loot up and get your gear and then find the action instead of landing for the action and looting up from there. There is no right or wrong answer, it's just all about what you feel comfortable with whenever you jump into the game. If you're a player that is aggressive, or if you're somebody that, again, likes to take the time, build up that arsenal that you have, and then using it against enemies that may be rotating in from different areas. It's really all user dependent. Also, one thing to consider this year, with strongholds and black sites offering higher yield rewards, like loadout drops and how to get your actual loadouts, not just your primary weapons, maybe that's something you land for initially so you can get your gear quick, get a loadout in the first couple of minutes, and then go hunting across the world. Really all up to you. But again, finding that right drop zone is going to take some time. It's going to take a few games to kind of get situated on what feels good, and if you're contested, if you're not, really just comes down to that feel, so make sure you try that out, get some reps in early on. Beyond that, recognize that some of the core utility is changing here with Modern Warfare 2's Warzone 2 experience. Not all buy stations are going to be the same, not all loadouts are going to be the same, and so on and so forth. On the talk of the buy stations, well, as we mentioned in yesterday's video about things you need to know, the buy stations actually don't have the same uniform offering across Al Mazrah. Not every single buy station will have the same streaks, the same utility items you can buy, and sometimes there will be finite amounts of those things that you can actually purchase. So if somebody, say, in theory, bought so many UAVs on this one buy station, there might not be any more available later on in game for anybody else that comes through there. So that's something to consider, that not everything will be exactly as you know it. And then when you come to the loadout discussion of things, again, we talked about how there's three main ways to end up getting your preferred weapons and loadout. Firstly, you can buy something from the buy station, but it's not your full loadout drop. It's only your primary weapon. So you don't get a secondary, you don't get your lethals and tacticals, you don't get your perks. Instead, you only end up getting that primary weapon you have set equipped. So it is important, of course, to still set up those weapons that you want, but it's just something you won't get the full advantage of the entire loadout. If you want a loadout, though, again, that's something you kind of have to go on a quest line to either take out a stronghold and overtake that, or you can end up waiting and hoping that you end up getting a loadout drop for free. But again, as we've discussed, that's something that those are universal. Any player can go up to that, even if it's not your team. You don't have a set loadout drop that drops from the sky specifically for your squad. So just bear that in mind. That stuff is going to change. And other things that are changing, of course, is the game pace. Resurgence mains in particular, this is going to be maybe a system shock here for you. Obviously, there's no respawns, no small based action. You're going to want to build your loadouts and playstyles for much more medium to long range. There's a lot more open space in Al Mazrah than what we saw with, say, Fortune's Keep and Rebirth Island. And also, comparatively to Caldera, it seems like there's going to be a lot of open space as well there. So make sure you're, again, tailoring your loadouts, your builds, your playstyles for medium to long range. Now, beyond that, make sure you have your gun up. We said this in our tips for launch with Modern Warfare 2, and the same thing can be applied here. It's maybe not as important to say MP. The TTK is going to be raised because of armor values, because of the distance between gunfights, but just know that there is still the potential, even if there is much more distance between you and an enemy, that if you go into a smaller area like a building or something like that, have that breach and clear mentality when entering those buildings. Check your corners, expect gunfights, strafe or jump corners perhaps, and have that gun up ready to get a gunfight, because even though we do have a slightly slower time to kill, it is still something you can shred through enemies. So if you end up getting that first shot off, sometimes it can be the difference between surviving and dying. Now, beyond that, explore and get active. Whether it's in DMZ or Battle Royale, explore parts of the map. It's an entirely different world, literally, that we'll be playing on for the foreseeable future. So explore that. Know your sort of hot zones, know the ins and outs of the map, find your jump spots, find those flank routes and areas that you can end up pushing enemies where they might not expect it, and so on and so forth. Doing so in DMZ is a little bit more relaxed per se, because you won't have as many real players, it'll just be AI, but at the same time, it might not translate to the sort of same tactics that you'll be using if you end up playing Battle Royale. Maybe some things differ, but explore, get active, learn Al Mazrah, and master it so that you can get ahead of that learning curve that so many people are going to be taking part in by just simply playing the game for the first couple of weeks. Now, additionally, be aware of vehicle changes while exploring and getting active. This time around in Warzone 2, vehicles will require fuel, so you can't go in them forever. Note where the refuel stations are if you plan on being in a vehicle for a prolonged period of time. And then beyond that, Party Up. It's a staple of one of my suggestions, which unfortunately might be a bummer. I was predominantly a solo player up until Modern Warfare 2019, and then matchmaking kind of changed that. And again, whether it be to help out in matchmaking or just for simply in the Warzone aspect, information and knowledge. Honestly, I think Partying Up is not necessarily so much a bad thing in Warzone as opposed to it as just a helpful tip, because information, having that extra set of eyes, maybe 2, maybe 3 if you're playing quads, and being able to call out where enemies are, being able to mark them, it just helps out tremendously in understanding the battlefield in front of you, being able to know where gunfights, where flanks may be coming from, and being able to set yourself up for the best possible outcome in those gunfights, giving you the most possible success long-term in each match. So Party Up, if it's not possible and you decide to random fill though, know the risks here of that as well, because while you might not be able to convince a random or so to join a Discord party, a PlayStation or Xbox party, proximity chat is a way that you can actually communicate with them. But this time around, it's not just like regular game chat that we saw in the past where it was only confined to your unit. Proximity chat is a great way to talk with your squad, but also get yourself killed, because proximity chat is, as the name suggests, open to everyone in a certain vicinity. So you can absolutely give away your position if you're just chatting with your squad. Somebody that may have voice comms open but not actually talking will be able to hear you. And so therefore, just know that that is a risk you run. Beyond that though, that's my tips here for launch. We'll of course break a lot more down over the coming days to weeks with settings videos, tips and tricks, guides, tutorials, all that kind of stuff on how to do as best as possible going forward. But for right now, going into launch before we have our hands-on experience with the public offering of Warzone 2 and Mazrah, as well as DMZ, this is what I'd recommend here going into it. So that said, that's what I'm gonna call it. I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Is there anything in particular you would like to add to this list here ahead of the Warzone 2 launch? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, DMZ, and all things Season 1. We've got you covered here on the channel. So if you'd like to join the community, I'd love to have you. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.